Hello there, welcome back. Michelle Dewberry, Jubes and Co alongside me, Rupert Lowe, Barry Gardiner, both of them, of course, MPs. Now, what a day. Well, actually, not what a day, actually. What a weekend. Of course, all of this started on Friday night, really, didn't it? With Zelensky and Donald Trump. You might have remembered I was off that night. I was in Hull. I raced to my television, GB News, of course, to watch it all kind of kicking off. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then, of course, there's been a flurry of activity over the weekend and again today in Parliament. What's your initial reaction to all of this stuff?
Well, I did tweet on Friday that it would have been better if those discussions had happened behind closed doors. I think that was not a discussion to be had publicly, but that it happened. I think it's a complex situation. Everybody sort of likes to boil it down to a soundbite, which I don't think you can do. My own personal view is that the USA, who ultimately, as the Prime Minister said, is the only country who can actually secure peace because, as Chopper said earlier, the European countries have actually used the peace dividend to cut back on their defence spending and spend it largely on welfare. So we end up with a situation where we're actually not in a position to defend ourselves. And I've got lots of whistleblowers who are telling me that we have not much ammunition now. The Army and Navy and Air Force are not fit for purpose. So it's all very well to sort of saber rattle and talk about putting boots on the ground. I think we can't do it, as he said, without the USA. I personally think America has made the decision that they want to see peace in the Middle East and they want to see peace in Europe because they see, I think, the bigger geopolitical enemy is actually China, which is why it's worrying that Barry's lot are giving the Chagos Islands away, which we already have, we already control, effectively own it. Mauritius has got no claim on it. It's of strategically massive importance if China were to invade Taiwan. And it's absolutely bonkers to be spending billions of taxpayers' money, I think the Telegraph has rumoured 90 million a year, to give away an island that we control at the moment, that we don't need to give away, that is going to cause trouble in the long run, both for our defence and for the world's defence, because America and the base at Diego Garcia is so crucial to us.
Barry?
Well, I think it's very interesting that when asked about Ukraine on an afternoon when Nigel Farage was really roundly humiliated in the chamber for a question which was quite ridiculous. And the whole chamber united against him, and Rupert was there at that point, so he'll recall. And the Prime Minister...
Summarise the question, though, because other people weren't there, so they don't really know what you're talking about.
Look, the Prime Minister had to respond and simply say, look, let's remember who the aggressor is here. It was Putin. Let's remember who has stood up against that bullying, and that is Zelensky. So the idea that you're siding with Zelensky, siding with Putin against Zelensky is ridiculous. And the whole chamber agreed and came together on that.
But hold on, though, because, I mean, I heard that question from Nigel, and what I'll do is I'll get a clip of that question, actually, and you play it to you all. You can make your own mind up. But I heard that, and whilst I didn't think it was the strongest question I'd ever heard, my takeaway from that wasn't that Nigel Farage was siding with Zelensky. Because
no, he wasn't. He was siding with Putin.
That's what I meant. My takeaway wasn't that he was siding with Putin. I thought my takeaway from his question was more around what are we going to be doing in terms of boots on the ground, these mineral agreements, etc. Is that going to be enough to secure peace?
Let's be clear. If you're siding with Trump here, you're against Zelensky at the moment.
What do you call siding with Putin? Let's explore that.
If you're in favour of peace,
as I say,
you're in favour of peace.
If you're siding with Trump at the moment, Trump is, as you have shown on the programme, talking against Zelensky. Now, who benefits from that? It's Putin. Now, Trump is doing it for a very particular American-based reason. He is trying to get the maximum mineral reserves for America. But he's also got to play both sides in this deal because he knows that Russia is currently occupying the eastern part of Ukraine where many of those minerals are. So he wants the minerals from Russia and he wants the minerals from Zelensky. And that's why he's walking this tightrope, but at the moment he's against Zelensky. Now, the point that Farage was making was, well, if there's a load of Americans in there trying to get these minerals out, then surely America's going to defend those people and therefore we needn't worry. Okay? The point is this, once the minerals are out, what then happens? What happens with Russia is that it never keeps to the deals and the treaties that it signed. That's what happened in Minsk. That's what happened in Bucharest. So what we want here is we want to know that ultimately Europe will be there, coming strong, paying more for its defense, making sure that we are solid behind Ukraine. But we also need to know that as a backstop here, America will always be there.
We can't do it without America, Barry. America has the economy, it has the arms, and it has the technology.
I think that's what I just said.
We haven't got. And as Chopper said, this needs to be a pan-European situation, because why, when Rachel Reeves is taxing the private sector into oblivion, as you're well aware, taxes rise pretty substantially in April, that's going to further damage our economy. And let me give you a history lesson, Barry. The country with the biggest and the most successful and vibrant economy wins the war. Might lose a battle, but it wins the war.
Well, let me give you a history.
We have not got a vibrant economy. We've got Labour doing everything in its power to destroy the private sector, to destroy enterprise.
And Rupert, you think Russia has? If you look at the countries that are part of this coalition of the willing that we're talking about.
I'm not talking about Russia,
Yeah,
Barry.
but I am. What I'm saying to you is that Russia's economy, in comparison with the coalition of the willing, we are 7 times larger an economy than Russia.
But we haven't got any arms, Barry.
I'm sorry.
It takes time to build up your arsenal of arms.
Of course it is. We learnt that lesson to our cost in 1938 and 39. Okay? But that's why we then made sure
today... And can I remind you that in 1940... May 1940, 2/3 of the House of Commons supported Halifax's position to surrender to Germany. So the House of Commons doesn't always get it right.
And presumably you'd be doing the same in a couple of years' time.
No, I would not, but I'm trying to
surrender
tell you,
to Russia.
I'm trying to tell you that when you get rude consensus, it's often wrong. So we have to look at this, and we have to talk about it sensibly. And we have to look at America's position, and we have to respect America. And at the end of the day, America, as everybody concedes, is the only country that's capable of acting as the global policeman. Now, if people are sensible, they will support what America's trying to achieve.
What is America trying to achieve?
I've told you, it's trying to concentrate on what it sees as the major geopolitical risks, which are predominantly from China.
But how does that affect
war in Europe,
Ukraine
as far
and
as
Russia
they're concerned,
and Europe?
War in Europe, as far as they're concerned, I think, is a sideshow. This is my opinion.
So you think, because you've just said that you side with Trump in this, you think that he's right, you think that war in Europe is a sideshow?
No, I'm siding with peace, Barry. So
but you're not.
To have a sensible peace deal...
I'm sorry, you're not.
No, we need a sensible peace deal. Quite enough people have died in Ukraine.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, what Trump's trying to do is engineer a peace deal.
No, he's not. What he's trying to do is engineer a cessation of hostilities in which he can extract the minerals and walk away. And that's the fear, and that's why we need to make sure that he's there as a backstop.
Once we've had a peace deal, we can then... have elections in Ukraine, and it can become a democracy rather than effectively an
He was
army
democratically elected. Don't let's go with that trope. It's silly.
The elections are now overdue, as you know. We can then have an audit.
I need to come in at this point because everyone keeps saying about dictation and elections being overdue. Ukraine is under martial law, and the rules of martial law dictate that if it's wartime, there's not an election, and those kind of rules were established before Zelensky was appointed.
Michelle, I'm not saying Zelensky is a dictator. What I am saying...
But are you saying that Trump is?
I told you this before. In Rome,
sorry, that Putin
in Rome, Sulla and Caesar, when they were given military power, they were called dictators. I'm not saying that, but when they handed back to the Senate, they ceased to be a dictator.
Is Putin a dictator?
No, I didn't say he was.
No, I'm asking.
I do think we're overdue elections. I think we're overdue an audit of where all the money that's gone into Ukraine has gone. And ultimately...
Do you agree with that? Do you worry that there's all of this talk of billions, and today we're talking about structuring those billions from a different pot? Is there any part of you that actually sits there and goes, hang on a second, are we making sure that this cash has been effectively spent?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are you doing about that?
I think that's absolutely important.
So what are you doing about that?
Well, if you look at what was said today in the statement, we were talking about making sure in terms of all the procurement processes that was speeded up, that was got right, that we made sure that we knew exactly where the money was going and what it was being spent. And Keir Starmer was very clear on that. But my question to you, Rupert, was very simple. Is Putin a dictator?
Putin is a dictator, clearly. He's been elected, but he's a dictator.
So
he has technically been elected.
So why is it that you would consider Putin a dictator, invading Ukraine, starting a war that could spill over into Europe
Barry,
is something that should be countenanced and not want the backstop of America in there to make sure it never happens.
Before you answer that, please answer me the question of why are you giving the Chagos Islands away when China is a bigger foe? And at the end of the day, I never said all I want to see is peace in Ukraine. And you tell me how a bunch of depleted European nations, I mean, Ursula von der Leyen, who is a failed German defence minister, was talking about creating a steel porcupine, for goodness sake. What's she talking about? Europe is calling on tram tickets. It needs the USA. The USA are the only people who are capable of policing a sensible peace deal.
As I said to you,
so we need peace talks.
The economies
we need to work to peace.
Economies of the
and that's got nothing to do with Putin being a dictator. It's got to do with getting peace, Barry.
Well, the economies of Europe, the economies of the coalition of the willing, are 7 times larger than Russia. So if you think it's going to be a struggle for Europe, how do you think Russia's feeling at the moment? How do you think with all the sanctions against Russia it's feeling at the moment? It needs peace.
The Prime Minister
can't continue this war.
The Prime Minister's talking about building up our arms industry.
Yes, of course.
We can't even police our own borders, for goodness sake. So,
Again,
it's a joke.
You always try and shift it away. When you lose the argument,
I haven't lost the argument.
About something else.
I'm talking about a peace deal. That's what I want to see. And I think if you ask most of the British people...
Don't you understand that a peace deal is something that lasts and not something that is simply a stopping of the violence for a few months? If you ask most of the British people, they will tell you they want peace in Ukraine.
Of
course, we all want peace in Ukraine.
They want peace in Ukraine,
yes.
Barry. They don't want pensioners not being kept warm. They don't want more money being sent to Ukraine. And by the way, you haven't answered... Labour will not answer and clarify that the overseas aid budget that you've raided won't be going to pay for the Chagos Islands deal with Mauritius.
Oh, nonsense.
Nobody will confirm that. So, look, the British people have been oppressed, they're being taxed into oblivion, the state's growing like a weed, and they watch with horror as our money is just given with one hand and then taken from the British people with the other. It doesn't, whether it's the farmers, whether it's the small businesses, whether it's the education sector, whether it's the pensioners. Why are you turning against decent British people?
Do you want to see an increase in the military spending of this country?
I want to see an increase in the military spending across Europe, Barry. As Chopper said, it needs to be Europe-wide.
Of course.
And by the way, Europe...
But do you want to see this country increase its military spending?
Not only has Europe created, but through its protectionism, a huge trade surplus with the USA.
Yeah,
we don't actually have it. Hang on.
Change the subject yet again,
no,
Rupert.
I'm not changing it. I'm not changing it. But quite rightly, Europe has taken advantage of America. Trump has had enough of that. So what we need to do is get around the table with Trump, respect the fact that he's the president of the USA. J.D. Vance is a very strong vice president, and stop virtue signaling. The truth is, Barry, we are not capable of waging war in Europe, and I object to the Prime Minister suggesting he's going to put boots on the ground.
No. And look,
Germany's not proposing...
You had left the chamber.
Germany's not proposing boots on the ground.
You had left the chamber this afternoon by the time the Prime Minister scotched that one very clearly. And that was when he was asked about the condition of boots on the ground.
He talked about boots on the ground.
And what he said after you had left the chamber was that there would not be any British boots on the ground unless there was a deal which was backed by America. That was very clear. So don't try and confuse the issue.
So we need not to criticise Donald Trump. We need to work with Donald Trump to create peace.
I haven't criticised Donald Trump. What I've said...
Hang on, most of your colleagues have in the past.
Okay, are you
David Lammy, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, almost all of you criticised him. Are you arguing with them or are you
arguing with me at the moment? Again, don't shift the argument.
I'm not shifting it.
You're shifting it to somebody else. Let's just...
It's like being mauled by a dead sheep, Barry, coming from your side of the room. No, I'm not changing the argument. I'm talking about all the issues, not just one little bit of the issues.
But whenever you're asked a direct question, Rupert, you shift your ground.
I'm not shifting my ground.
Let me just ask you a couple of questions, okay? And that is, do you believe that we can get peace sustainably without America as a backstop?
I've said we need America. She's the only one who can act as a global policeman, because she's the only one who's invested in her arms industry.
And at the moment,
unlike us, who spent it all on welfare,
and at the moment, Donald Trump is saying that he's not prepared to be the backstop, isn't he?
Because what Donald Trump's trying to do is ensure we get sensible debate and we get peace in Europe.
What you've just admitted,
and he's using realpolitik.
What you've just admitted is that what constitutes a genuine, lasting peace that is sustainable is one that's backed by America.
Of course.
And at the moment, the American president is saying he's not prepared to back it. And that's the circle which Keir Starmer is trying to square. That's why when he went and he played, I think, a very sensitive
Mr. Zelensky
diplomatic
was disrespectful to him. That's what he thinks.
Yes, but he doesn't think Keir Starmer was. And that's why it's really important that Keir Starmer is there taking the leadership role that you scoffed at earlier, because he's trying to make sure that we square that circle, that we do get peace, but it's a lasting peace. It's not just a peace which allows America to go in there, whip out the minerals and walk away.
Well, I'm not sure I can agree with you. I mean, you know my views on Keir Starmer. I think having a human rights lawyer in charge of our country is, frankly, it's like having a fox in charge of the chicken coop, given the way we've gone post-war. So, no, I don't agree. There's a lot of virtue signalling going on. What we need is proper discussion. We need to get everybody around the table, and we need to work out a sensible, as you say, sustainable peace deal.
But Trump is saying that he doesn't want everybody around the table. So again, you contradict yourself. You say you agree with Trump, and then you say something that disagrees with what Trump has said. Because Trump is saying, I'm going to negotiate.
Trump
is saying, I'm going to negotiate this deal with Putin, and then everybody else falls in line.
Mr. Zelensky said he was ready to sign the deal with Mr. Trump. That's what he said before they had the spat.
Before they walked in there, because he thought there would be a deal to sign. There isn't at the moment, and that's the problem. And that's what we need to square, and that's why we need to make sure that America can't just walk away after the deal is done.
We need a sensible peace deal, Barry. On that, we're in rude agreement.
Good.
So the inbox is very divided. So everyone at home, myself, all listening to this conversation. Paul says, does Zelensky actually want peace? He feels that he's sabotaged the meeting with Donald Trump. And you're saying that you feel that Zelensky is enjoying the limelight too much and doesn't want all of this to end. That's a bit harsh, Paul. Clive said, Donald Trump is in Putin's pocket. We should never make the mistake of supporting this traitor. I'm an ex-army man and I'm disgusted, he says, by how Donald Trump is acting. Bernard, well, lots of you actually are suggesting that if we're talking about putting troops on the ground now, why didn't we just do this all along from the start? I mean, that'll get you all talking at home. How can we achieve peace in Ukraine without freedom? Well, I guess that freedom perhaps would look differently, Andrew, depending on who you're asking that question to. Barry Gardiner started this segment by talking about Nigel Farage's question in the chamber. Let me just play that for you in case you missed it.
President Zelensky has now accepted that he's going to sign the minerals agreement with America. And America's going to put in $100 billion or whatever it is, and thousands of Americans will be in Ukraine. Is that of itself enough of a security guarantee? No. Or does it mean that we need to send British troops? And if we do, given the size of our army, how many?
The mineral deal is not enough on its own. But can I just remind him, Russia is the aggressor. Zelensky is a war leader whose country has been invaded. And we should all be supporting him and not fawning over Putin.
Well, there you go. You can have your own thoughts on that question there. Ignacio says, Michelle, Donald Trump, I'm watching him and ultimately he's trying to patronise Starmer and bully Zelensky. He reckons that the only way this war will end is if Putin walks away with getting whatever he wants. Tom says Putin is going flat out to call division in Europe. And Tom worries that there's a chance he will succeed. Adriana, though, says we shouldn't be sending a penny more to Ukraine. And she says she's absolutely with Donald Trump, who she feels